Let's help ourselves get a little bit of an intuition for this energy problem and for power consumption. And that intuition will help us understand the whole climate problem and the whole energy independence problem. So, what are the real basics? This is an apple. It takes 1 joule of energy to lift this apple from the ground up onto the table. So energy is a quantity. The rate at which we use energy is power. That's measured in watts. If I take the same apple and it takes me 1 second to lift the apple from the ground to the table, that's about 1 watt. Now imagine I have 40 apples here in a crate, and every second I lift 40 apples from the ground up onto the table. That would be about 40 watts of power. Incidentally, that 40 watts of power is about how much power it would take to run the apple that drives this presentation. The convenient thing about using units of power is it allows us to account for things that we do on different timescales, and it allows us to consider mechanical forms of energy, it allows us to consider chemical forms of energy, and the rate at which we consume them. To give you a further intuition for power consumption, me standing here before you talking and breathing and walking, I need about 100 watts of power. I get the energy for that power from eating food. When you boil your kettle, it needs about 1,000 watts of power, or a kilowatt. And that energy comes from your natural gas or from your electric stove to boil the water. A megawatt of power is roughly the amount of power required to take a very large diesel locomotive and pull a train. Or if you've ever seen a large-scale wind turbine, it's producing around a megawatt or 1,000,000 watts of power. The Hoover Dam, many of you will have stood in front of the Hoover Dam and been awed by the power of water rushing over its walls. That's about a gigawatt of power, or 1 billion watts of power. In fact, for the Hoover Dam, it's almost 2 gigawatts. Now, there's another unit that's a very large number called a terawatt of power. That's 1,000,000,000,000 watts. At roughly the turn of the century, humanity as a whole, for all of the human activity, needed about 1 terawatt of power. Today, humanity uses about 16 terawatts of power. And this story about energy and climate and energy independence and America's energy future is a story of fairly large numbers, and we need to just be aware of these orders of magnitude to understand what's going on. To help further your intuition about power consumption, if you're like the average American, you probably use around 12,000 watts of power to run all aspects of your lifestyle. Your driving, your flying, your eating, your house, your heating, and the whole thing. That 12,000 watts is equivalent to burning 120 100-watt light bulbs all the time. So you can imagine as you walk through your entire daily activities, there's always 120 100-watt light bulbs burning behind you. And that gives you an intuition for the large amount of power that it takes to drive our modern lifestyles. If I was to leave my house every morning with a backpack loaded with all the fuel that I needed in order to run all of my light bulbs all day, I'd need to load something like 60 or 70 pounds of oil into that backpack, around 60 or 70 pounds of coal into that backpack, and about 12 pounds or a few hundred cubic feet of natural gas into that backpack. And then through the day, I will burn all of that and return home in the evening with an empty pack. So as you can see, there's a huge amount of power that we use, and it means we burn a lot of fossil fuels. And the question that we're really here to try and answer is, how do we do that without burning so many fossil fuels? And perhaps even, how do we reduce the size of the backpack that we need to leave home with every day?